Men. Hello, friends. Once again, this is Daniel Mateola, and I'm bringing you another nugget on the subject eyesight, insight, and foresight. Some of you would have heard me use these three words in recent weeks because the Lord spoke to me many weeks ago, particularly at the beginning of this whole pandemic, that it was time for me as a son to have my eyes open, to seek Him for insight, and to have foresight. Well, for this particular nugget, I just want to just let you know this. I heard yesterday in the news, yesterday evening, our health secretary in the UK, Matt Hancock, share about something the government is looking at as a way forward to be able to help us go back to life and work and do business. And it's simply three words: test, track, and trace. Test, track, and trace. Now, some of you may have already heard this. I heard it, and immediately in my spirit man, I said to myself, here we go. Because there were a few things that the Lord had shown me many weeks ago, and when I started to share it as well as some other people around the world, it seemed like we were sharing conspiracy theory. The Lord gave me a message very profound about 5 weeks ago that I shared with the local church about the power of fear. And when fear takes a grip of our hearts, of a society, we begin to give up our freedom and not realize it. We begin to make all kinds of bad decisions. And in some cases, we give up stuff that we may never be able to take back. Well, here we go. Now, for those of you who have not heard about this, test, track, and trace is simply a system that's been developed, computer system, or should I say, well, yeah, computer system, intelligence system, in which everyone would download the software on their smart device, which will ask you questions on a regular basis about how you're doing, such that if you have symptoms, you indicate you have a symptom. And so immediately every other person who has downloaded this, they can track you, they know where you're at. So if you say you feel like you have a symptom or you're tested positive, then everybody who has been in contact with you recently, they pick it up on their own smart device as well, and they're able to then go into self-quarantine. At least this is what the health secretary has said to us. Now, my question to you listening to me is this really the best way to deal with this pandemic? Is this really the best way to get us back to normal life and get us back working? Already aware. Now, I personally have been studying what's been going on around the world, what each country has been doing and how they've been getting around this. And I've also been studying a lot of data, a lot of information about what's really going on that the mainstream media is not telling us about. We see all these figures about death, and it's giving us incredible amount of fear. But many of you who have seen the figures about the death related to COVID-19 do not know what is the regular statistics of death around the flu influenza period. You don't know how many people die normally every year. You need to go check it. Some of you need to go check what the death rate in the United Kingdom is, even without COVID-19. And then others among you need to really find out what's going on in our health system and how many of this data we're being given is not accurate, because in many cases, a lot of the deaths have been as a result of the whole panic, the fear, and what the health system had to deal with, but not necessarily did everybody die of COVID-19. At the same time, some of the data that you're going to need to find out about is really how many people have been tested in the UK. You'll be shocked, just like they're finding out in the United States of America now with the amount of tests they've done, that a high percentage of people had actually had the virus and recovered just with their immune system, kicked this virus thing on the teeth, and they recovered. And the amount of people who have heard it and recovered has now caused some states in America to realize that the fatality rate of this coronavirus COVID-19 is something like 0.01%. As a matter of fact, there are some people now beginning to ask the question, why did we shut down our economy and why did we cause so much loss of jobs if the rate of death is nothing too far away from what we normally have during the regular flu and influenza season? Now, I don't want to go too deeply into that, but I just want to talk to you about this test, track, and trace thing. Is it really the best way to go forward? I kind of got the hint also from the health secretary that this is one of the things that is going to be underlying with the decision of whether we can go back to work or go back to our business. In other words, there's going to be a way to be able to tell if somebody is going to be dangerous and if someone needs to self-isolate in the future. I ask you another question. Could there be another agenda behind this? If you again listen to world news very well, you would find out that there's been some talk about this in some other countries. As a matter of fact, they've gone a bit one step further. Some are talking about a vaccine, and a vaccine that maybe would include a microchip so that way we know who is taking the vaccine or who is not. So let's put the microchip thing to one side for a moment and just think about the issue of the vaccine. Well, maybe with test, track, and trace, now we can tell who is taking the vaccine, who has not taken the vaccine, and hence, who knows, maybe we're going to get to the place where you can't go to work or you can't open your business unless we have conviction or confirmation that you've received the virus and you've received vaccine. Now, I may be going ahead of myself a little bit, but I really want somebody to know why I'm doing this. Another thing I want you to think about very quickly is, could this be the ultimate Big Brother implementation? Now, there are two issues that we could end up experiencing. I can just tell you this up front. I will not be downloading no software. I will not be taking any vaccine, because I believe very, very strongly that with every single one of us that have very healthy immune system, we have picked up this virus already. Our bodies have already responded to it. I'm being very honest with you. If enough tests is done, you will be shocked at the data. Now, apart from that, I'm also aware of something that is beginning to be rolled out in our world now. In the book of Revelations, chapter 13, verse 16 in particular, I want you to listen to this. Some of you are familiar with this Bible verse, but we know this is what's going to come in the last days. And we know that the way has to be paved for the Antichrist to be able to have control over all of mankind, or at least access to all of mankind on the earth at the time when the Antichrist shows up. Listen to this. In verse 16, talking about the Antichrist, it says, "And he required everyone, great and small, rich and poor, slave and free, to be given a mark on the right hand or the forehead. And no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which is either the name of the beast or the number representing the name of the beast." Now, let me just stop there for a second. If you're like me, for at least the last 3 decades of my life as a believer in Christ, I've always thought to myself, how on earth would this be possible? Now, you think about the people like John that lived 2,000 years ago, the early believers. They could not figure out how on earth are you going to be able to track all people on the earth in order to be able to control who buys and who sells. It wasn't until the last 100 years that the technology has just come into our world. Maybe one of these days I'm going to post a teaching I did some time back about Jesus is coming back sooner than later. I gave 21 reasons, and 7 of those reasons were linked to technology advancement. Interestingly enough, it's only in the last 100 years that we have satellite technology, that we have internet technology, and we now have the ability not just to be able to trace people, but trace them and know where they are anywhere in the world. For the very first time, I'm now seeing another dimension, because many of us have said, I'm not taking a mark. If it's going to be a mark, I'm going to fight it, whatever, I will not take a mark. Now, some of us have discovered technology of microchip, and we've also said, I won't take a microchip. I'm not going to let anybody put a microchip in my body. But what if the microchip is not going to be put in your body, but what if it's going to be carried by your smart device, your phone? What if it's just going to be the microchip on your phone that downloads a software like this one, test, track, and trace? What if this is the beginning of the systems of this world being able to tell where you and I are, where we are, at what point in time, what we're doing? And what if this will be the beginning, maybe not this pandemic, maybe another pandemic, And all of a sudden, we begin to hear laws that say things like, if you don't take a vaccine, you can't go back to work. If you don't take the vaccine, you can't open your business. And now, even something worse. Not only is there a spiritual side to this, but there's a social side to this. You see, with the lockdown, very bad neighborhood relationships already started. People telling on each other. Police officers knocking on doors and saying, well, you've been reported by somebody in the neighborhood that you're not keeping social distancing. Now think about that for a moment. How a person feels, begin to wonder who is telling on you in the neighborhood. Now this is worse. Not only are we now going to have distancing, which makes it easy for this level of satellite tracking, internet tracking to be possible. Because remember, if we're close to each other, it's going to be difficult to track us. But if we're at least 2 meters or more apart from each other, now you can track everybody. Now you have things like people being suspicious of one another. Now you have people probably saying, I think my neighbor coughed yesterday night. Maybe they have symptoms and they're not reporting it. Do you know what this could lead to? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to have eyesight, seek God for insight, and have foresight. Pay attention to what's going on. Test, track, and trace. Where is this going to? Well, you have a right to your own opinion. I just wanted to put this out there and just to say, we all need to be very, very careful. If we have a chance to talk back to our government and tell them about this particular idea, I think you should say it's a bad idea. We don't want it. Guess what else? There's so much talk about trying to get a vaccine for the coronavirus COVID-19. Do you know facts? The coronavirus has been around for quite a number of years now. And do you know facts? There's been no successful vaccine discovered for the coronavirus, any of the strains of the coronavirus in the years that it's been around. No successful vaccine was discovered for SARS. No successful vaccine for the bird flu, H1N. Why are we so sure that there's going to be a successful vaccine this time? And in every case in the past, that stuff has just gone away because the human being developed antibodies to be able to fight it. Those with weak immune system unfortunately died as a result of it. But that's what happened with SARS. That's what happened with all the other ones that we've known in the past. And guess what else? Even with flu and influenza that we say we have discovered vaccines for, do you know how many people still die yearly, even with the flu shots? Wake up. Be very attentive to what's going on around you. This is the beginning of a new dimension and the paving of the way for the coming of the Antichrist. If you don't know Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior of your life, I highly recommend you give your life to the Lord, because I don't think that this world is going to ever be the same again as what it was before the beginning of this pandemic. And I believe it's time to speak up, speak out, let your voice be heard. And if you have any concerns about anything, for God's sake, don't be so held down with fear that you stop thinking. Because out of fear, you would lose your freedom, you would lose yourself, and I'm telling you, you may lose even much more than that. It was fear that caused the people of Egypt to give everything up to Pharaoh. It was fear that caused even the Hebrews to give everything up. Fear is causing many people today to give everything up while we're at home scared of the virus. Wake up. Eyesight, insight, and foresight. Once again, this is Daniel Matthew. I hope this has blessed you, and I hope this will get you thinking and this will get you speaking. Bye for now.